It was supposed to be just another camping trip, a group of friends, a night under the stars, and the comforting crackle of a fire in the middle of nowhere. But deep in the woods, away from the nearest town, we stumbled onto something we were never meant to see, something that should have stayed buried, a body, pale, twisted, and half hidden beneath a shallow bed of leaves. And that night we learned a horrifying truth. The dead don't stay silent, and the living? They don't all tell the same story. The night was darker than expected, thick clouds blanketing the moon and leaving the forest shrouded in shadows. Our group of 6 friends had come out here for peace, for silence, for an escape from the constant hum of city life. We carried our tents, flashlights, and laughter into the heart of the woods, but by morning we would only carry fear. It was Jason who first noticed it. We were hiking off trail, chasing some shortcut he swore led to a hidden lake. The trees grew denser, their bark black and slick with dampness, and the forest floor felt wrong underfoot. Too soft, too disturbed. Then came the smell. At first, we brushed it off. Probably a dead animal, someone muttered. But the deeper we walked, the stronger it got, sweet and rotten. A smell that made bile rise in our throats. Then Jason froze. His flashlight beam caught something pale among the leaves. We gathered around, our breaths fogging in the cool night air. What we thought was a piece of driftwood wasn't. It was a hand. Human. The fingers curled stiffly, skin stretched tight and waxy. Screams erupted behind me. Sarah dropped her flashlight, the beam bouncing across the forest floor until it landed on more of the body. The face. It was a man, maybe in his 30s, eyes wide open and cloudy, his lips were parted, and his jaw seemed broken, hanging at an unnatural angle. None of us moved. None of us wanted to breathe. And then the silence was broken. From somewhere deeper in the forest, a twig snapped. We spun around, flashlights darting through the trees. Nothing. But the sound was too close, too deliberate. Someone else was out there. That's when we heard it. A voice, low male, whispering something we couldn't understand. Panic set in fast. We wanted to run. But Jason, somehow steadier than the rest of us, crouched by the body. "Guys," he whispered, "look." Pinned to the corpse's shirt was a photograph. Old, damp, edges curling. We huddled closer, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw it. It was us. The 6 of us, sitting by the fire, smiling. That same night, that same trip, someone had taken a photo of us without our knowledge and placed it on the body. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the picture. "This isn't possible," Sarah whispered. "We just got here today. No one even knows we're here." Jason's face went pale. "Someone knows, and they want us to find this." Another sound, this time a laugh, faint but chilling, coming from the darkness ahead. We didn't think. We just ran. Branches tore at our arms, roots caught our feet, but fear gave us speed. We ran until the forest opened into a clearing, and we collapsed, gasping, trying to make sense of what we'd seen, but we weren't alone. At the edge of the clearing, 10 figures stood, half shrouded in shadow. They didn't move. They just stared. And then, one by one, they spoke, each of them saying the same thing in different voices. "I know what happened to him." The news spread fast. By the next morning, the woods weren't quiet anymore. Flashing police lights painted the trees in blue and red, and the smell of damp earth mixed with something sharper, metallic. Word had gotten out. People came. 10 strangers, each claiming they knew something about the body. At first, I thought it was curiosity seekers, but no. The way they stood, the way their eyes shifted, it was like each of them carried a secret. Heavy as the soil covering that corpse, there was A middle-aged woman with trembling hands clutching a rosary, a teenager who wouldn't stop staring at the crime scene tape, a man in a business suit with mud on his shoes, and others, all different, yet drawn here like moths to flame. The sheriff tried to wave them off. This isn't a show, go home. But one by one, they stepped forward, each saying the same chilling thing. I know who that is. My blood ran cold. 10 strangers, 1 body, and somehow 10 different truths. She was the first to speak. Her voice cracked as she clutched the cross around her neck. That's my son. He's been missing for 6 months. That's him. I'd know those shoes anywhere. Her hands shook violently. She described a scar on his leg, a mole behind his ear. The sheriff glanced at me. We both knew the truth. The body was too decomposed to confirm anything by sight alone, but the conviction in her voice chilled me. Before the sheriff could respond, the teenager stepped forward. His hoodie was soaked from the drizzle, his hair plastered to his forehead. That's not her son, he said flatly. That's my sister. She ran away last year. I saw the bracelet on the wrist. That's hers. I gave it to her on her birthday. His eyes were glassy, but his tone had no hesitation. 2 people, 2 completely different identities. Then came the businessman. His tie was loose, his shoes streaked with mud like he'd run straight through the forest. You're both wrong, he said, his voice tense. I worked with that man. His name was Patrick. He went missing 3 weeks ago after leaving the office. I recognize his watch. I bought it for him. His words felt rehearsed. His jaw clenched as if hiding more than grief. The sheriff grew pale. 3 people, 3 different claims, and then the rest began to speak, one after another, until 10 strangers all gave the same answer in different ways. They each knew the body. They each claimed it belonged to someone they'd lost. I felt sick. How could one body belong to 10 different people? Unless it wasn't just a body, it was something else. Something wrong. As the crowd argued, their voices rising, the woods grew louder with them. The whispers of wind through the trees sounded like voices, almost like laughter. And when I looked down at the shallow grave, at the pale hand sticking out from the soil, I swear I saw it twitch. The strangers didn't speak much on the way back from the woods. The forest seemed to swallow their footsteps, as though it didn't want them leaving with the secret they now carried. Somewhere between fear and disbelief, the group trudged back into town. No one wanted to go home. No one wanted to be alone. So when Joseph, the ex-army man, suggested they meet at an abandoned farmhouse on the edge of town, everyone agreed. The house had no electricity, no running water, and no neighbors for a mile. Just a forgotten husk at the end of a gravel road. Its windows were boarded up, but a few planks had fallen away, leaving slits for the moonlight to sneak in. Inside, the air smelled like damp wood and mold. The 10 strangers stood in the living room, the wooden floor creaking beneath their weight. No one sat down, no one dared. Finally, Lisa the nurse broke the silence. We can't just pretend we didn't see it. That body, someone's going to come looking. Someone already knows. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with a quiet conviction. She wanted to act, to call the police, to do something, but the others weren't so sure. What if it wasn't normal? Whispered Greg, the conspiracy theorist, his eyes darting toward the dark windows. What if we weren't supposed to find it? The room fell cold. No one wanted to admit they felt the same way. They began arguing. Half of them wanted to alert the authorities. The other half feared doing so would paint a target on their backs. Then, knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the farmhouse. Every head snapped toward the front door, but there was no one there. The group stood frozen, listening to the silence that followed. Then, without warning, the knocks came again. This time louder, faster. Knock, knock, knock. Lisa grabbed Joseph's arm. Someone followed us. Joseph signaled everyone to stay back as he crept toward the door. He opened it slowly. The porch was empty. Only the tall grass swayed under the moonlight, but at the foot of the porch stairs lay something, a Polaroid photograph. Joseph picked it up. His hands stiffened. The others leaned in to see. The picture showed the farmhouse, the very house they were standing in, but from the outside, taken moments ago. The boarded windows, the porch, the cracked paint, and through one of the gaps in the boards, a pale, staring face. It wasn't any of them. Panic erupted inside. People shouted over one another, some accusing, some demanding to leave. But just as they were about to scatter, the farmhouse door slammed shut on its own. The temperature dropped. A sharp creak echoed upstairs. They weren't alone. Scene fades, narrator lowers voice. 10 strangers found themselves bound, not just by a secret buried in the woods, but by something that followed them home, and it wanted them to stay together in the house with no lights. The farmhouse grew silent after the door slammed shut, too silent. No wind, no crickets, not even the sound of their own breathing seemed normal. Ragged, panicked gasps filling the room. Joseph, his hand still gripping the Polaroid, muttered, "Someone's inside with us." The group stood in a circle, backs pressed together, scanning every corner of the room. Dust floated in the pale shafts of moonlight, cutting through the boarded windows. Then came the sound, creak, from upstairs, slow, deliberate footsteps. Each step echoed through the empty walls, measured, like someone wanted them to hear. Lisa shook her head violently. "No, I'm not staying here." But before she could reach the door, Sarah, the quiet librarian, grabbed her wrist, her eyes wide, trembling. "They want us to stay. Don't you get it? If we leave now, it'll follow us, like it followed us here." The words froze Lisa mid-step. The group argued again, whispering fiercely. But the footsteps upstairs never stopped. Back and forth, pacing above them. Finally, Joseph decided, "I'll check." "No, you won't," Greg shot back, panic in his voice. "That's exactly what it wants." But Joseph was already pulling a rusted iron poker from the fireplace. He pointed to the others. "If I scream..." The stairs groaned under his weight. The group held their breath as he climbed, vanishing into the shadows above. Silence. Then, "Joseph?" Lisa called softly. No answer. They waited. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then a sound made them all jump. A low voice, barely audible. It was Joseph, whispering, "Don't come up." But before they could react, a scream tore through the house. Joseph's scream. The group bolted toward the stairs, but halfway up, something came crashing down from above. Joseph. He slammed against the wooden steps. Blood smeared across his forehead, eyes wide with terror. He scrambled down, shoving past them. It's no. He stammered. Behind him, at the top of the stairs, stood a figure, pale skin, sunken eyes, and a face that looked exactly like Joseph's. The group shrieked. Stumbling back into the living room, Joseph, the real one, slammed the door to the staircase shut, bracing it with the fireplace poker. His chest heaved. "They look like us," he gasped. "They're copies." The silence that followed was worse than any scream, because if what Joseph said was true, then the strangers weren't just being hunted, they were being replaced. What began as a mystery in the woods has now become something far darker. In the house with no lights, 10 strangers may not survive the night, and if they do, will they even recognize each other anymore? The farmhouse was suffocating. The boarded windows rattled as the wind picked up outside, howling through cracks in the walls. The fireplace poker Joseph had jammed against the stair door trembled with every thud that came from above. Something was still up there, something wearing his face. Lisa was pacing in tight circles, her breath sharp and fast. "This is insane. I don't care what that was. We're leaving now." "No," Sarah whispered. Her voice was steady, almost unnervingly calm. "If there's one, there's more. It could be waiting out there too, Greg snapped. So what? We just sit here until it takes us one by one? That's when Joseph, still bleeding from his forehead, said the words that made everyone's stomach turn. They don't just look like us. They are us. Or at least, they're trying to be. The group froze, Sarah's face drained of color. What do you mean? When I looked into its eyes, Joseph stammered, it wasn't just my face. It knew me. The way I move, the way I breathe. It's studying us. The words echoed in the silence, and suddenly, the group began to eye each other differently. Lisa stepped back, pointing a trembling finger at Sarah. Then how do we even know she's real? Sarah's lips quivered. I've been with you the whole time. Not the whole time, Lisa cut her off. You went to the kitchen earlier, alone. Greg's eyes darted. She's right. You were gone longer than you should have been. Sarah's voice cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was looking for a flashlight, I swear, but the suspicion had already taken root. The room grew hostile. Every twitch, every shadow across their faces now felt like evidence. Maya, the youngest of the group, whispered from the corner, if they can copy us, then maybe one of us isn't who we think. The silence after her words was unbearable. A noise interrupted. Tap, tap, tap. Everyone spun toward the boarded window. A pale hand, by human but off somehow, pressed against the glass. Its nails dragged slowly, scraping like it wanted to be invited in. Lisa screamed. Greg grabbed a chair and slammed it against the board, sending splinters flying. The hand vanished into the night, but the damage was already done. Joseph turned to the group. We need a way to prove we're still ourselves. How? Sarah demanded. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Greg muttered, maybe they can't remember what we know. Maybe they don't keep memories. The idea spread quickly. They began quizzing one another. Birthdays, names, details from earlier in the night. It worked at first. Lisa rattled off her daughter's birthday. Maya recited the phone number of her best friend. But when it was Sarah's turn, she froze. She stuttered, I can't. Her eyes darted frantically. I'm just nervous, that's all. Lisa stepped forward, rage in her face. Or maybe you're not Sarah at all. The room exploded. Shouts, accusations, Sarah screaming that she was herself, Lisa demanding they tie her up, and above it all, the faintest sound of laughter. From upstairs, the laughter was thin, distorted, like glass scraping against metal. It was mimicking them, repeating their words, their screams, their sobs. Lisa froze. Her own voice was calling her name from the second floor. Lisa, Lisa, come upstairs. Her face drained of blood. That's me. It sounds like me. And when she turned back toward the group, her real voice cracked into a sob. I don't know if I'm real anymore. The group collapsed into paranoia. Maya covered her ears. Rock. Back and forth. Greg gripped the broken chair leg like a weapon, glaring at everyone, and Sarah, trembling in the corner, whispered through tears, maybe the only way to survive is to kill the ones who aren't themselves. The firelight flickered across their terrified faces. Nobody trusted anyone anymore, and outside the farmhouse, dozens of pale faces gathered in the woods, watching, waiting. The strangers thought the monsters were outside, but what if the real danger is already inside the room? The town of Ashford Hollow wasn't the kind of place you'd find on a map, small, quiet, half forgotten. The kind of town where everyone pretended nothing bad ever happened. But tonight, after the discovery of the body, that facade was beginning to crack. I had decided to go back into town. Partly to look for clues, partly to keep my sanity. My phone was filled with texts from the group chat. The other 9 strangers who'd been there in the woods with me, some were accusing, some were terrified. But all of us had one thing in common. We didn't know who to trust. Walking down Main Street, I noticed something unsettling. The town square was too quiet. Shops with their blinds pulled down, the diner that should have been open 24/7 now dark. A stray dog wandered across the street, its ribs showing, its eyes oddly alert, and then I saw them. A handful of townspeople standing completely still in front of the old clock tower. No conversation, no movement, just staring at the clock's frozen hands as if they were waiting for it to strike midnight. Except it was already well past midnight. Something was wrong. I slipped into the shadows, listening. Their voices were low, hushed, but I caught fragments. The 10th one always shows up. She doesn't belong here. If the woods gave a body, the town will take one back. My stomach dropped. Were they talking about us? About me? I stepped back too quickly and a shard of glass cracked under my foot. Every head turned toward me at once. 10 pairs of eyes. Blank, unblinking, I ran. By the time I ducked into the alley behind the bar, I was gasping for breath. My hands shook as I typed a message into the group chat. The town knows. We're not safe here. No sooner had I hit send than a reply appeared. We told you not to go back there. But I hadn't told anyone I was going into town. My blood ran cold. Who sent that? Another message popped up instantly. They're bien. Already watching, I dropped the phone. Somewhere deeper in the alley, I heard the scraping of shoes on gravel, slow, deliberate. Someone was coming. I didn't make it back to the woods that night. Instead, I stumbled into the Ashford Hollow Motel, the only place with its lights still on. The neon sign buzzed faintly. Half the letters burned out. Inside, the lobby smelled like mold and stale cigarettes. The man behind the counter didn't look surprised to see me. "Room's already waiting," he said without asking my name. His voice was flat, rehearsed, as if he'd said the same thing hundreds of times. He slid a brass key across the counter. Number 6. I didn't argue. My nerves were already fried. When I got to the room, the first thing I noticed was the sound. The TV was already on, static. Filling the room with its white noise hum, on the nightstand sat a single object, a cassette tape recorder, its red light blinking, waiting. There was a folded note beneath it. "Press play, do not rewind, do not stop." My pulse quickened. I hesitated, then pressed play. The tape clicked, then a voice, scratchy, distant, but unmistakably human. "By now you've seen them. The ones who stare at the clock, the ones who wait. They're not alive in the way you think. They're vessels." A pause, the sound of heavy breathing. "You and your friends. You shouldn't have found the body. The woods don't like witnesses. The town doesn't either. That's why 10 came forward. That's why you were chosen. Chosen." The word rattled in my skull. I tried to stop the tape, but the button wouldn't budge. The recorder kept going. "You will be given a choice," the voice continued. "One of you will not survive the week. The woods demand balance. If you try to fight it, the town will decide for you. They already know who you are, and they're already watching." I ripped the batteries out, silencing the machine. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The room felt colder. I pulled the curtains shut. That's when I noticed. The mirror, someone had written across the glass in condensati, on as if from a breath too close. "Look behind you." I spun around. A man was sitting in the chair in the corner of the motel room. Pale skin, eyes too wide. His mouth was fixed in a crooked smile. "I didn't think you'd make it this far," he whispered. The man in the chair didn't move at first. His crooked smile was frozen, almost painted onto his face, his pale hands resting neatly on the arms of the chair. The only sound in the room was the static from the television, buzzing like a swarm of insects. Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm, deliberate. "You pressed play. That means you're ready." I swallowed hard. Ready for what? He tilted his head, like he was listening to something behind the walls. "For the choice." The word hit me again, the same way it had on the tape. I tried to edge closer to the door, but his eyes flicked toward me, sharp, predatory. "Don't bother, they've locked us in." He was right. The door handle didn't budge when I tried it. The windows wouldn't open either. I was trapped. The man leaned forward now, the crooked smile widening unnaturally. "You saw the body that ties you to the woods, to the balance. Now you'll either be the sacrifice, or you'll decide who is." My chest tightened. "You're lying." "Am I?" He chuckled softly. "Think back. 10 people came forward to confess. 10 strangers. Did you ever wonder why? Did you ever wonder how they all knew details only the killer should have known?" I froze. He leaned closer. His breath smelled like damp earth. "They weren't confessing," he whispered. "They were volunteering." I shook my head. "Volunteering for what?" He tapped his temple. "The woods are old, older than the town, older than you. They feed on stories, on fear, on guilt. When a body is found, someone has to carry the weight. 10 came forward, but only 1 is chosen. The rest disappear." I backed against the wall. "Disappear how?" The man in the chair didn't answer. Instead, he slowly rose to his feet. His shadow stretched impossibly long across the motel room floor. Reaching toward me, he reached into his coat and pulled out something small and metallic. At first, I thought it was a knife, but when he opened, in his hand, it was a rusted pocket watch. Its glass was cracked, but the second hand ticked violently, spinning too fast. "This," he said, holding it up, "this decides who lives." The second hand clicked louder, louder, until it drowned out the TV static. My ears rang, my heart pounded. I tried to cover my ears, but the sound wasn't coming from the watch anymore. It was in my head. The man stepped closer. "It's already started." I looked down at the floor and saw shadows moving that didn't belong to either of us. They crawled along the carpet, long fingers stretching, reaching for my ankles. I panicked and kicked free, stumbling backward into the nightstand. The cassette recorder clattered to the floor. The tape had ejected itself. Another note was inside. "You can still walk away, but only if you know their name." I looked up. The man was gone. The chair was empty. The TV turned itself off. And in the silence, I heard something I will never forget. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from inside the bathroom door. The knock came again. 3 sharp raps on the bathroom door. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The motel room was sealed. The door jammed. The windows painted shut. My voice shook. "Who's in there?" Silence then. A whisper, low, guttural, words I couldn't understand. I took a step closer, my legs trembling. The bathroom light was on, leaking a thin yellow glow under the doorframe. The shadows beneath the door shifted as though something inside was pacing. Another knock, this time softer, almost polite. I couldn't breathe. Then the doorknob began to turn. I stumbled backward, hitting the nightstand. The lamp flickered violently, then burst, plunging the room into darkness except for the thin strip of light from the bathroom. The door creaked open. At first, I thought it was empty. The bathroom looked normal. A cracked mirror, a running faucet, peeling wallpaper. But then I saw it. The man in the chair. He was standing inside the bathroom now, though I never saw him move. His crooked smile was wider, stretching too far, his head cocked at an unnatural angle, and in his hands he still held the pocket watch. But this time, it wasn't ticking, it was glowing. "Do you hear them?" he asked softly. I shook my head, though the truth was I could hear something, a chorus of whispers, faint at first, then swelling, overlapping, until it sounded like dozens of voices, all speaking at once. "They're waiting," he said. "They know you don't belong." I forced out words through dry lips. "Who are you?" His grin faltered just for a moment. His eyes flickered with something almost human. "I was the last one chosen," he said. "And now, I can't leave." The voices grew louder, pressing against my skull. I clutched my head, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't in the room. They were inside me. "You brought the tape here," he continued. "That makes you part of it, but you stinked. You'll have a chance. A name. One name, that's all it takes." I shook my head violently. "I don't know their name." His smile snapped back into place, wide and grotesque. "Then maybe they'll tell you." He lifted the pocket watch, and its cracked glass reflected something in the mirror behind him. Not him, not me, but a third figure standing between us, a tall, thin silhouette, its head bent low, its fingers scraping along the mirror's surface, as though trying to claw its way out. I gasped and stumbled backward, but when I blinked, the mirror was empty. The man in the chair was gone again. The pocket watch lay on the sink, still glowing. I picked it up with shaking hands. The whispers stopped instantly, but etched into the back of the watch, scratched so deep it had torn the metal, were 3 words: "Ask the woods." The bathroom light flickered, and then I realized the faucet was still running, but instead of water, something dark was pouring out, thick, black, and glistening. Blood. The knock came again. 3 sharp raps on the bathroom door. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The motel room was sealed. The door jammed. The windows painted shut. My voice shook. "Who's in there?" Silence then. A whisper, low, guttural, words I couldn't understand. I took a step closer, my legs trembling. The bathroom light was on, leaking a thin yellow glow under the doorframe. The shadows beneath the door shifted as though something inside was pacing. Another knock, this time softer, almost polite. I couldn't breathe. Then the doorknob began to turn. I stumbled backward, hitting the nightstand. The lamp flickered violently, then burst, plunging the room into darkness except for the thin strip of light from the bathroom. The door creaked open. At first, I thought it was empty. The bathroom looked normal. A cracked mirror, a running faucet, peeling wallpaper. But then I saw it. The man in the chair. He was standing inside the bathroom now, though I never saw him move. His crooked smile was wider, stretching too far, his head cocked at an unnatural angle, and in his hands he still held the pocket watch, but this time it wasn't ticking, it was glowing. "Do you hear them?" he asked softly. I shook my head, though the truth was I could hear something, a chorus of whispers, faint at first, then swelling, overlapping, until it sounded like dozens of voices, all speaking at once. "They're waiting," he said. "They know you don't belong." I forced out words through dry lips. "Who are you?" His grin faltered just for a moment. His eyes flickered with something almost human. "I was the last one chosen," he said. "And now, I can't leave." The voices grew louder, pressing against my skull. I clutched my head, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't in the room. They were inside me. "You brought the tape here," he continued. "That makes you part of it, but you stinked. You'll have a chance. A name. One name, that's all it takes." I shook my head violently. "I don't know their name." His smile snapped back into place, wide and grotesque. "Then maybe they'll tell you." He lifted the pocket watch, and its cracked glass reflected something in the mirror behind him. Not him, not me, but a third figure standing between us, a tall, thin silhouette, its head bent low, its fingers scraping along the mirror's surface, as though trying to claw its way out. I gasped and stumbled backward, but when I blinked, the mirror was empty. The man in the chair was gone again. The pocket watch lay on the sink, still glowing. I picked it up with shaking hands. The whispers stopped instantly, but etched into the back of the watch, scratched so deep it had torn the metal, were 3 words: "Ask the woods." The bathroom light flickered, and then I realized the faucet was still running, but instead of water, something dark was pouring out, thick, black, and glistening. Blood. I ran blindly through the woods, heart hammering, branches tearing at my clothes and skin. The fog thickened, curling around my legs like living tendrils. Every step echoed with whispers, the voices of the 10 strangers or their copies, calling my name in distorted harmony. I stumbled onto a small clearing and froze. There she was, Lisa, or what I thought was Lisa. She was lying on the damp ground, gasping, her eyes wide with terror. Her hand pointed at something behind me. I turned, and then I saw it. The first forest hunter, one of the pale doppelgangers, moving faster than any human, limbs elongated, crawling over the roots of trees like some grotesque spider. Its face flickered between all 10 of the strangers, and then mine. Lisa screamed. I grabbed her arm and pulled her to her feet. "We have to keep moving," I shouted. She nodded, but the moment we stepped forward, another doppelganger appeared from behind a tree, silently blocking the path. Its eyes glowed faintly red. The forest seemed to close in around us, pressing, twisting, shaping the path as if alive. The pocket watch burned in my pocket, throbbing like a second heartbeat. I pulled it out. The second hand pointed frantically at another figure. Meow. "She's next!" I yelled. Lisa and I sprinted again, branches slapping our faces. A scream echoed through the fog. Maya was gone. The whispers were now a roar. Shadows darted between trees, crawling over roots, leaping with inhuman speed. Every direction we looked, another doppelganger appeared, mimicking our own movements, anticipating us. I realized something horrifying. They weren't hunting us randomly. They were learning us, predicting us. Every heartbeat, every breath, every fear we had, they knew it. Lisa stumbled over a root. I grabbed her hand and yanked her forward. She tripped again. Behind us, the forest hunter landed with a sickening thud. Its flickering face showed her own. The pocket watch glowed brighter. I glanced at it. The name of the next victim blinked violently. Greg. I screamed for him. My voice echoed through the mist, then a shadow moved swiftly between the trees. Greg wasn't running, and he was being dragged into the fog. His eyes met mine one last time, wide with disbelief. I ran faster, and then I reached it, a clearing with a single massive tree. Its branches were blackened, twisting into unnatural shapes. At its base, a hollow emitted a faint glow. I didn't know what I'd find, but instinct screamed it was a sanctuary, at least for a moment. We ran toward it. The whispers slowed. The shadows hesitated. I collapsed against the tree, trying to catch my breath. Lisa collapsed beside me. And then we saw it. The first survivor standing inside the hollow, Joseph, bloodied but alive. "I've been waiting for you," he rasped. "The woods, they test you. Only one can survive at a time. But there's a way out." I looked around, desperate. "How?" He pointed at the pocket watch glowing faintly in my hand. "Follow the names, stay ahead, and pray the forest doesn't get creative." Before I could ask more, a shriek cut through the fog. Another doppelganger lunged from the trees. Its face flickered into mine, Lisa's, Joseph's, and then disappeared into mist. The chase was far from over. Joseph led us through the forest, his movements surprisingly sure, despite his bloodied state. Every step I took felt like a trap. The trees seemed to twist and bend around us, shadows stretching unnaturally. Finally, we reached a clearing unlike any I'd seen before. At its center stood an enormous, gnarled tree, far older and larger than the one that had sheltered him. Its bark was blackened, but it pulsed faintly as though it were alive. Branches coiled into shapes resembling screaming faces. "This is it," Joseph whispered. "The heart of the woods. The entity that controls the doppelgangers. It's what the town hides, what the woods protect." A chill ran down my spine. "How do we stop it?" He shook his head. "You don't stop it. You survive it. Only one of us will make it out alive, and the woods decide who. The rest," his voice broke, "the rest are offered to it." The pocket watch pulsed violently in my hand. Its second hand spun like a cyclone, pointing randomly at Joseph, Lisa, and me. Suddenly, the whispers returned. Not faint this time, a deafening chorus, as if the trees themselves were speaking. "The balance must be kept. The debt is due. Offer yourselves, or be taken." A shadow detached itself from the tree. It moved slowly at first, a mass of black smoke and tendrils, then solidified into a humanoid figure. Its face was featureless, a void that reflected my own fear. Joseph grabbed my arm. "It's watching you. It knows your name, and it knows your fear. Remember the names on the watch. That's your only leverage." The figure extended a tendril toward Lisa. She screamed. Joseph tackled it, but the shadow twisted and reformed instantly. I looked at the pocket watch. Its hands pointed straight at me. No time to think. I remembered the first body we found, the first sacrifice. The rules were clear. The entity fed on fear, confusion, and hesitation. I shouted Lisa's name. The shadow paused, hesitated. Joseph shouted Greg's name from behind me. Another pause. It was working, but only for a moment. The forest seemed to pulse in response, branches thrashing. Whispers turned to wails. The ground beneath us cracked and groaned. Then Joseph did something unexpected. He picked up a fallen branch, carved with strange runes glowing faintly in the moonlight, and stabbed it into the ground. The glow spread like veins, forming a protective circle around us. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from the light. "It knows we've learned the rules," Joseph yelled. "We have leverage now. Leverage it fears." But the entity wasn't finished. It raised its tendrils, twisting into shapes of our own faces, mocking us. I realized something terrifying. The woods didn't just test you physically, it tested your mind, your morality, your choices. One by one, the tendrils lashed toward the doppelgangers, dragging them screaming into the blackness of the tree. "Your turn," Joseph said, thrusting the pocket watch at me. I swallowed my fear and held it tight. The second hand spun violently, then slowed, stopping at a figure I didn't recognize, a doppelganger that had been hiding in the shadows. I whispered their name. The shadows hesitated. The whispers quieted. And then, in a sudden, almost imperceptible flicker, the doppelganger vanished, drawn into the heart of the woods. The entity recoiled, the tendrils retracting into the massive tree. Silence fell. We were alive, for now. But I knew one thing. The woods would never forget. The protective circle faded almost as soon as we stepped out of the clearing. Joseph, Lisa, and I ran blindly through the fog-thick forest, branches whipping against our faces and tearing at our clothes. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle a predator. The pocket watch pulsed in my hand, each beat syncing with my racing heart. The second hand pointed erratically, flicking between Joseph, Lisa, and me. I realized it wasn't just a guide, it was a countdown. Then we heard it, a shriek that seemed to echo from every tree at once. The entity had followed us, not a shadow this time, something massive, taller than the trees, limbs writhing like serpents, eyes glowing faint red. It moved faster than any living creature should, gliding over roots and fallen logs with terrifying speed. Lisa screamed and tripped. I grabbed her arm, yanking her upright just as a tendril shot past, missing her by inches. Joseph was ahead, waving his arms, trying to ward off the shadows crawling at our heels. The forest seemed endless. Every turn led to more fog, more twisted trees. We ran past the remains of other doppelgangers, bodies flickering between form and shadow before disappearing entirely. I could hear whispers again, low, taunting. "They can't escape. The debt must be paid. You belong to the woods." We stumbled into a clearing I didn't recognize. The fog was thicker here, almost tangible. Pressing against our skin, the entity loomed behind us, its tendrils stretching impossibly far. Joseph pulled us behind a fallen tree, trying to catch our breath. "The pocket watch," he panted. "We have to use it." I held it up, its glow intensified, the second hand spinning rapidly, pointing at Lisa. "Her turn?" I asked. Joseph shook his head. "Not yet. We have to outsmart it. The woods feed on fear. If we show no fear, even for a moment, it hesitates." I swallowed hard and tried to steady my shaking hands. I glanced at Lisa, terror written across her face, and forced her to focus. "Look at me. Breathe. We control the fear." For a heartbeat, it worked. The entity's movement slowed, its tendrils faltering mid-strike. But the fog thickened again, and the shadows surged forward. Suddenly, a tree branch snapped behind us. Greg, the one who had been taken earlier, appeared out of the mist, pale and hollow-eyed, a doppelganger of himself trailing behind him. "It wants me," Greg shouted, eyes wide. "It won't stop until it has all of us." I grabbed his arm. "Run!" We sprinted again, deeper into the forest. The entity followed relentlessly, tendrils lashing, branches bending toward us as if alive. Every corner we turned, another shadow emerged, flickering between the faces of the 10 strangers. Our own faces, and now Greg's. The pocket watch pulsed violently. The second hand stopped, pointing straight ahead at an opening in the fog. "A way out?" Lisa gasped. Joseph nodded. "Maybe, but it's a trap. Nothing here is safe. We follow the watch and stay ahead of the fear. It can't predict courage." We ran. The fog swallowed the path. The whispers turned into screams, and the entity's tendrils lashed at us again. But for the first time, I felt hope. If we stayed together, trusted the watch, and stayed fearless for just a moment longer, maybe, just maybe, we could survive. The fog began to thin. Light pierced through the twisted trees, signaling the edge of the forest. For the first time in what felt like hours, I could see the horizon, a faint glow of the town beyond. But the relief was short-lived. The whispers didn't fade. They grew louder, sharper, angrier. The entity had followed us this far. Its tendrils shredded the undergrowth, twisting and curling, reaching for us with impossible speed. Joseph held the pocket watch tightly, guiding us. Almost there, just a little further. But remember, the woods test everything: fear, loyalty, choice. I glanced at Lisa. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt. Greg limped beside us, shaken but alive. "Are we going to make it?" she whispered. I didn't answer, because I knew the moment we stepped into the open, the entity would strike. And then we saw it. At the very edge of the forest, standing between us and the road, was the entity's true form. Unlike the shadow tendrils we'd seen before, this was solid, enormous, and horrifying. Its face was a twisted amalgamation of all 10 strangers, shifting constantly, eyes blinking independently, mouths whispering in a chorus of terror. It spoke, not with a voice, but directly into our minds. The debt must be paid. One will leave. The rest will belong. The pocket watch pulsed violently. Its second hand pointed at each of us in turn, then froze. Directly at me, Joseph growled, "You have to make a choice. Name the one who leaves, or none of us will survive." My mind raced. I thought of all we'd endured, the chase, the doppelgangers, The forest's whispers, the weight of every name, every fear pressed on me. Then I saw it. Lisa's trembling eyes, Greg's pale face, Joseph's bloodied body, and I realized the truth. The forest didn't care about fear, it cared about sacrifice. Someone had to be offered willingly. I raised the pocket watch. The entity loomed closer, its 10 drills lashing, the ground trembling beneath it. The whispers turned into screams, deafening, demanding, echoing in my skull. I closed my eyes. "It's me," I whispered. The entity paused. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. Then, slowly, it extended one tendril, wrapping it around me, cold, unyielding, sucking me toward the heart of the forest. Lisa screamed. Greg tried to grab me. Joseph shouted something I didn't hear over the roar of the forest. And then, the pocket watch glowed brighter than ever. The second hand spinning violently, the entity shrieked, twisting and flickering, unable to hold me. I felt a pull, violent, crushing, and then a flash of light. I opened my eyes. The forest was gone. We were standing at the edge of the trees, the town lights in front of us. The whispers had ceased, the shadows had vanished. Lisa collapsed into my arms, crying. Greg fell to his knees, gasping. Joseph stood silently, watching the forest edge, as if expecting it to strike again. I looked at the pocket watch. Its second hand had stopped. The words, "Ask the woods," had vanished from its back. We were alive, but the forest had left its mark. The whispers lingered in the back of my mind. The shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and I knew, someday, it would return. The town lights glimmered ahead, but the relief was short-lived. I could still feel it, the forest's presence, a weight pressing at the edge of my mind. The pocket watch was now silent, its glow extinguished. Joseph, Lisa, Greg, and I stumbled onto the cracked road, our breaths ragged, hearts pounding. Behind us, the trees seemed calm, almost dormant. Yet I knew it had not truly released us. Lisa clutched my arm. "Are we safe?" she whispered. I shook my head. "Not really, not yet." We reached the first streetlight. The glow washed over our faces, giving a false sense of comfort. Joseph scanned the horizon. The forest leaves a part of itself behind. We survived, but it's not done. Wherever we go, it watches. I looked at Greg, whose hands trembled, eyes darting nervously. "So, it's over?" Joseph shook his head again. "Over, never, but you've learned something most never will. Courage, sacrifice, and the rules of survival. Remember the names on the watch, and maybe you'll last another night." I glanced down at the pocket watch. The words, "Ask the woods," were gone. The surface was smooth, almost innocent, yet I could still feel its pulse in my mind, faint, like a warning. We walked cautiously toward the town center. A few cars passed, drivers oblivious to the horrors hiding just beyond the tree line. The wind carried a faint rustle, almost like whispers, but I forced myself to ignore it. As we reached the outskirts of the town, Joseph stopped. His face was pale. "Before we go further, we have to decide." "Decide what?" Lisa asked. "The story doesn't end until the entity knows our choice is final. One of us must stay, as a marker. Otherwise, it will hunt us down again." I felt my stomach drop. Joseph, Greg, and Lisa stared at me. The weight of survival, the lessons of the forest, the horrors of the doppelgangers. It all came down to a final act. I'll stay," I whispered. "No," Lisa screamed. "Ed, we can't leave you." "I have to," I said firmly. "The forest. It won't stop if we all leave. I'll give it a reason to let you go." The entity didn't appear physically, but I could feel it. Tendrils of cold creeping through the road, brushing my legs, testing me. I held the pocket watch tight, my heart pounding. Then it was there. A whisper, not loud, not screaming, but cutting through the night. Your choice is accepted, for now. A shadow enveloped me, pulling me gently back toward the edge of the forest. Greg, Lisa, and Joseph ran forward, screaming my name, disappearing into the town lights. I felt the cold branches brush against my face, but strangely, they didn't hurt. The whispers faded, and then silence. The forest was quiet. For a moment, I felt peace, but then a faint flicker at the tree line caught my eye, the entity waiting, patient. I realized then that survival was never permanent. I was alone, a sentinel between the forest and the town, and I understood the true meaning of the pocket watch. It wasn't just about names, it was about choice, fear, and the endless cycle of the woods. I looked at the smooth, lifeless watch in my hand. One word returned to my mind, etched deeper than before: next. The forest exhaled, and I knew one day someone else would hear the whispers, see the shadows, and be tested. I raised the pocket watch toward the trees, knowing my story was just one of many. The forest waited, and I waited with it.